huge amounts of damage with a good Jace, and I'm talking, you know, post double Chaos Strike, double Fury, at least rank 2, and so on, you know, to just really stack up that potential weapon swing damage.
But your Jace had better get it done. If you come after the Jace, it had better win, because otherwise the other Jace is going to come back the other way and take control itself. So let's have a look how they choose to go with. Tredsred got the Skull in position 3, but nothing really good in 1 and 2. Makes it a very difficult choice. If you stick an Il'gynoth on the left there, this hand suddenly looks terrible. So curious to see what he does with his Skull.
It is tricky because although those two aren't the best cards to just throw away, well, you can play Fury on turn 5 and be happy about it. Like, the +3 is fine. You don't really normally wait till turn 10 to do that. And also the Moarg is just dumpable, right? Like, yes, you can do the Moarg Il'gynoth combos with the right Skull, but the problem is there are other cards that you can draw into if you mulligan these. They're a little bit scarier. He's going to choose to throw the Moarg, though. And he got Fell Barrage, so Tredsred is more than okay with this post-mulligan scenario.
Yeah, that worked out very nicely. Now it's perfectly dumpable. One of the things that surprised me when I first picked up the deck is you just barrage. You don't really... Obviously, there's some nuance to it, but you just play the card a lot of the time on curve, because you need to spend your mana so that when you do get to Jace, it's got the maximum things in the bag. His bag of fail tricks.
Yeah, ooh, even going out just straight away with the Fury, not even going to wait. That's very interesting. Because not only is it less damage now, it's also less damage in that Jace turn, so it's cool to see if that pays off or not, because it just seems like he didn't really need to. He's got plenty of time to play that one out.
Spend your mana. I mean, he's going to have a Skull on 5, I guess, so he's going to have plenty to do there going onwards if he coins. He might coin into the Fell Gorger, slowing the Skull down. Probably depends what he picks up in the meantime. But this isn't the hard turn. Next turn's the interesting one for me, whether he's going to coin out the Fell Gorge to get a tiny bit of tempo, but you know it's not going to live, or whether he wants to save the coin for the Skull on 5.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the plan, right? Especially if he's aggressively throwing away some of the cards he's already done so far. Wolder, on the other hand, can be a little bit tricky here. I think it's fine to just play the Eldrazi Warblades. Again, though, really interested about the swing. Like, this is just different to how I would play the matchup, honestly. I think there's no reason to swing yet, because I guess that's 1, the Rust Drop Viper, heal for 2, sure. But I normally like to just equip it and then just hold off a little bit. Yes, it's annoying if the Viper comes down, which is one of the tech cards from Tredsred that Wolder will be aware of. But still, it's I do like holding it, just because there's a lot of payoff, right? There's bigger heals with all the weapon buffs you can get with Chaos Strike, with Fury, and also there's potential that, you know, Il'gynoth can just be an on-curve play, and then you can actually just push a ton of damage with the help of Eldrazi.
Yeah, absolutely. On the other side to that, there aren't many things. I mean, the reasons you gave are good reasons, but there's not many minions you're going to swing into, because you have so many minion removal spells. You're going to tend to use those, not the weapon, in this particular matchup. So just pushing the damage as quickly as you can makes some sense. But yeah, I'm also interested in that.
Tredsred going to drop down the Fell Gorger, keep hold of that Chaos Strike, which I like. Again, I don't think hitting your opponent for 1 and 2 per turn is going to get the job done in this mirror. So I do like him holding this and trying to stack up for something a little bit bigger. He does have access to that coin Skull next turn, and now Wolder is on the back foot here. And he has to not only kill off this Fell Gorger, but also just work out a plan as to what he wants to do. He might even have to get rid of this Thalnos, just so he can draw with Spectral.
Yeah, he doesn't necessarily have the bad news. He's in trouble yet, but he saw the mulligan. He knows that the Skull is almost certainly coming up here next turn, and that will put him a long way behind, because there's the combination of the Jace doing the damage, but also the combo that can still do. I mean, it can still do lots of damage, but it often does decent damage. So Wolder really does need to keep control of the board, because he is going to be up against it with these reduced Skull cards. Putting a clock on him. 0 mana Moarg, 5 mana Jace, 2 of the best things you can get.
Yeah, this is looking really nice. Just being able to pump out tons of damage, and look at what he can already get in, like double Chaos Strike in there as well, just to be able to stack up before you use Jace to then, and because there's 0 mana, he can even do it all in the same turn, right? You can Chaos Strike, Jace, and then that will do another 2 Chaos Strikes.
Yeah, that's a lot of damage. The Wolder has chipped away here, but Tredsred can heal back up to full at will at the moment if he wants to. And Wolder discovering minion pressure. It's a chance to get some more damage in, or at least force Tredsred to give it parts of the combo, because he is attacking on that combo front at the moment, having played Skull. Obviously, no Il'gynoth in hand, but Wolder doesn't know that.
Right. Arcanist can get some work done here if he wants to just focus on clearing the board again this turn. Could even just go Arcanist Fell Scream Blast and wait. But it depends, and this is why this matchup and this deck in general is pretty tricky, because I'm saying you could just Arcanist Fell Scream Blast, heal up,
right,
play these minions, and then you still have Fell Barrage, you still have the Chaos Strikes and so on to push damage. But Tredsred might be thinking, oh, well, if I hit the right reductions, and because he has a 0 mana Artificer, maybe he can do an Il'gynoth turn with those later on, right? And do like the old style OTK. So there's so many options here.
Yeah, I think there's a long way to go before we're good at this deck as a community in general. Because there's so many different moving parts. But looks like he's going to load up for possibly even a Jace next turn, depending, again, what comes off the top. It's a bit early, like I said earlier. If you Jace first, you'd better hit. You better do a lot.
He's getting to the point that there isn't much more for Tredsred, I don't think. There's not much more for him to even gain from Jace. I think there's 1 Fury left over.
Right.
Outside of that, like, again, in this matchup, you're not looking for AoE a lot of the time because both players aren't really developing big boards. So you don't need the immolation auras in Jace. You don't need all of that kind of stuff. So in terms of just damage, I think he already has a decent chunk of it. He's played double Barrage, I think. He's played 1 Fury and 2 Chaos Strikes.
Okay, that might tempt him to just wait 1 more turn. Nope, he's going for it. It's going to be a lot of damage.
And because he hasn't used tons of AoE, there's a good chance that Jace lives here. Whereas normally you kind of expect Jace to die, especially in a low minion board like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going for more of a tempo Jace than a game ender.
And again, this deck it does do some big heals, but the monster heals aren't usually there. My eye's caught by IB Moarg, and if you're going to do that, you probably want to maybe Felgorge first, see what's going on. You can get the I-Beam down to 1, so you've got the mana.
Wait, can you get the I-Beam down to 1?
4, 6. No, you can't. You can get it down to 1, but you don't have any mana left when you do it. Sorry.
Right, okay, yeah, I was very confused. I was like, wait a minute, that turn doesn't work. Wolder is just going to respond with his own Jace, and of course the Tredsred's Jace being the easy target there. And now he ends the turn with a 7-5 on board, and it's up to Tredsred. Oh, that is a good pickup, though. If he can clear off this Jace on the other side of the board, just playing an Il'gynoth can be a little bit terrifying, especially considering Wolder's only on 13 health.
Yeah, he's eyeing this Chaos Leech as potential damage, though. But I think we'll see him hold on to the Il'gynoth. It's difficult, right? Because he's used up the cheap cards on the big turn he had. So he now doesn't have access to the crazy combo win or even a mini combo win. Okay.
Okay, not a bad skull. To get hold of something.
Mm-hmm. Wolder on 13. Definitely doesn't want to be sitting around 13.
Yeah, it's one of those things where at this point in games like Il'gynoth, it doesn't need a huge, massive combo that's obviously much harder to do now because of the nerf. But even if it just gets a half combo off, like one Moarg, one kind of spell damage buff and a Fell Scream, then these health totals, that's often enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the point of Il'gynoth now. It's a closing card that can be played as a massive monster, as opposed to just... I don't know, a joke that just wins games from out of the blue. It now actually has to do some work. But we are getting to the turns now where both players have like so much mana available that, you know, it's no longer a joke. At 12, right? If he has one more mana.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Wolder's turn. Because if he draws he's got another Eldrazi, right?
Yeah.
If he draws and can preload an Eldrazi Warblades, then that is a ton of damage. If he survives long enough, of course.
Yeah, my eyes are drawn to Tredsred's health total as well. It's 24. That number always gets you buzzing when you're looking at this deck. The amount you can do, but he has no spell damage in hand unless I'm very much mistaken.
No, he does not. Double 10 mana Furies there, though, from Wolder. That's a ton of damage.
Going to Chaos Leech his own minion to get the skull off? Yeah, he is. If he can hit spell damage, he might get lethal next turn. There we go. Set up for 18? Must be more than 18. Right, that sets up for lethal anyway next turn.
Yeah.
He's got Il'gynoth and Moarg buff, that's 18, plus 1 from the swing is 19, as it stands. Yeah, you saw from Wolder's reaction there, so okay, plan B needed.
This gets so weird, though, because both Jaces being gone, this becomes like this weird sort of Il'gynoth standoff, but here, like, Wolder's clearly looking to be in a better spot.
Well, can he do 18 twice? Has he got enough minions? Can he keep the minions alive? There's usually a way of doing this. I've fallen for this one before.
Oh, you mean like Brain Freeze, the one on the far end?
Yeah. Freeze, can he do 24 then 6 or 24 then 3?
I think he can.
So he can do...
yeah, he can do it this way, right?
Yeah. That works.
Looks good enough to me. Really nice play there from Wolder, taking game number 1 in a really, as you can see, a really tricky mirror to try and play around with, because a lot of those combos, as you can see as well, heavily depend on what your reductions are from Skull. It's not like previous iterations of Demon Hunter where obviously Il'gynoth was cheaper, so you could even do it like the hard way, right? Even if most or nearly everything is full cost, like you can still pull off some level of combo. Whereas in this deck, it is way, way, way harder unless you hit specific things. So yeah, really big win there for Wolder, going 1-0 up in the Demon Hunter mirror. So great start, and honestly, just, you know, a great start to a great day of a great tournament for him, right? Again, not a player we've seen too much of in the past, at least on your big tournament streams, but being 4-0 so far in Swiss, taking game 1 against Tredsred, you know, a very established player by now, it is a great start to the day, and this might be the tournament where we stop saying, oh yeah, we've not really seen too much from Wolder, right? Like the next MT, we could be like, oh look, it's Wolder again, he did great last time.
And he's exactly the sort of player who can break out. Like, looking through things that I can find about him, he has picked up sort of $500 first prizes, which is quite big for sort of third-party smaller tournaments. He has been around the scene. He's had backup results in like Battle Rift style tournaments and those. He's been around the scene a long time. He finishes top 100 on 2 servers most months. You know, he's a strong player that we don't know much about, but that doesn't mean he's not very good, right?
Oh, of course.
We don't know the thousands and thousands of players, and his stats say he can play Hearthstone. It's his third or fourth Masters tour, just settling in, and they're exactly the sort of player, like you just said, who suddenly just starts winning things. I'm not saying he will, I'm not saying he won't, but he's that profile that we are used to breaking out.
Yeah, I don't really think it's that common that he goes through a Masters Tour as he has done so far. I believe his wins are over Swids, Luna, Tincho, and Letter. Right, like that is a solid 4 players to have victories over in a Masters Tour, right? So This could just be the one. He's kind of ticking all the boxes right now. But Tredsred is going to respond to the loss in game 1 with queuing up this Miracle/Tempo Rogue here. And again, if this looks a little bit weird and you felt like you've gone back in time, it's because that is what it looks like. It is pretty much just the Miracle Rogue from the previous set.
Yep, is it card for card?
I'm pretty sure it's card for card, yeah.
There's not a single new card in there.
Yep, I know there are lists that look very similar to this that run 2 Garrots, and I'm not even talking about the Garrot list, which just has the field contacts and stuff. There's literally a list with like Jandis and everything like that, but just with 2 Garrots thrown in. But no, this is just the previous expansion Rogue, and we've seen players play around with this and have some success as well, but it is just surprising to me that there's no wiggle room for improvements, right? I'm sure once players put more time into this style of Rogue, we will see these improvements, whether it's going down the Garrot line or going down something else, maybe a few new additions in there. But Wolder is going to be queuing his Quest Shaman into it. And how do you feel about this matchup? Because it's kind of like the new versus the old, right?
I'm so biased every time because I just, for 5, 6, 7 years, have refused to believe that Rogue is good. And every time I say something like that, people like Casey and people like you and Eric will say, it's good, Rogue's really good. But I think Quest Shaman just wins this matchup quite easily. I think that because of that Perpetual Flame being the main deal there, I think you've got the AoE to deal with those weird boards, you've got constant removal to deal with smaller boards, and enough health gain to get out of range of any sort of combo finish. I just don't think the Rogue will get it done personally, but again, I'm the anti-Rogue person. I've always underrated the class.
It does seem like a tough one, doesn't it? The one benefit, I think, or the good chance that Tredsred has with this deck is it's very efficient, and I think we probably half forgot about how good the Rogue can be at, cycling through the deck, having those tempo plays, because Shaman, although extremely powerful, do not get me wrong, Perpetual Flame is a heck of a card, but Tredsred can make the boards, especially if he gets hold of, for example, the kind of Kazakus on 4 kind of turn, right? And then he has 2 chunky golems that are hard to deal with, potentially. Those can be the turns that really help him and propel him forward in the game. But you are right. If a big Perpetual Flame comes down, if Wolder can just get ahead on board or keep the board even, there's not many decks that can really stop the post-quest finish charged calls, right? And the craziness that can come out from post-quest Shaman right now.
Yeah, I even forget that's the win condition, partly because the first times I played Shaman for a whole day, and I mean a whole day, like 14 hours of it, I had copied 2 lists and neither had charged call in them. So I was winning the games without a finishing condition because the deck, the charge calls are very good. Obviously, they're particularly good in the mirror. But the deck just gets control and then finds a way to win. It just so happens if you play the best card in the deck, which is Charged Call, you win a lot quicker.
It does make some semblance of sense, doesn't it? When you think about it that way, if you play the good cards, you'll win games of Hearthstone. It does make sense.
Who knew?
Here, though, this is the kind of hand I was talking about for Tredsred, right? He has the effective cycle with the mixture of Octobot and the field contact. Got Shadow Step as well if he wants to do anything with field contact and save it with Shadow Step. And he has Kazakus, so he can get those big golems down potentially very easily. And the onus really will be on Wolder to deal with those golems, because if Tredsred secures the board, one Perpetual Flame just won't cut it.
Yeah, and if Wolder gets maybe 1 or 2 more minions established and then Perpetual Flame, that's it. Rogue, not known for being able to deal with wide boards, even if they're sort of full of 2/3s and 0/2s. It's okay, but then you're giving up something else. If you're shadow stepping your your plunderers, you're losing out on Octobot, and so on. But yeah, these golems giving Tredsred a chance here. But this is what the Shaman does so well: remove your tempo while making my own.
Yeah, a little bit tricky. Kind of getting the mini mage there and getting the plus damage on it isn't too bad, right? Just having that 4 attack kind of locked in and not being able to really be interacted with from Tredsred. He is going to go digging with Secret Passage, though, not thinking that what he's got in hand is going to cut it. And that's fair, right? He just pretty much had the golems that he has to wait for and like 2 field contacts, so not really enough to cut it.
Yeah, also, if he's going to get the Octobots, you quite often end up with more cards in your hand with the Secret Passage played first, so going to have an even bigger reduction now, in theory. So yeah, those Octobots are now looking monstrous, but the main reason was, of course, to occupy the board, as Tredsred has managed to do.
Now, this is the big question, right? Wolder has options, right? He could just Perpetual Flame and play some minions and push. He could go Note Taker Perpetual Flame to retain a Perpetual Flame in hand, and I think this is very smart because it lines up very well against this board, but you can see how many cards Tredsred has in hand, right? You know there's another board coming very quickly. There's potentially golems dropping down as well that Wolder's going to have to clear up. So the fact that he's done this and just sort of cashed in on another Perpetual Flame is a big deal, and of course clearing his mana crystals looks pretty good to me too.
Hits the guidance from the One Maker, which is really relevant because now he's going to be able to get that, at least keep up with the card advantage to some degree. These golems, like you talked about, are going to be an absolute nightmare. Wolder's a don't look gamer as well. He take both cards immediately, as you should do.
Oh, we can deal with this easy though, right?
Yeah. Well, yes, but it costs a lot, right? There's no really comfortable way to do it.
I mean, for me, being probably the hardest set of minions he's got to deal with all game, I think just trading the 2 minions and going Zapper Perpetual is really nice.
Sure.
Having those hit for 5 is so smart.
It'll do. It'll definitely do. Like you say, he can afford to be a little bit wasteful. I mean, it's not even wasteful, but it's slightly wasteful, I guess, on this, and even completing the Stir the Stones.
Yeah, and this kind of makes up for the low impact of not being able to play a Canal Slogger this turn, right? He didn't really play big minions, but he gained the 3/3 taunt, so again, he's quite wide on board. And now, Tredsred has his work cut out for him, but with double Octo and field contact. Oh, I've still got faith.
Yeah, this is his window of opportunity, right? Because next turn, Wolder's only have 3 mana, so he's not going to be able to do much. We can see he's going to be able to do very little next turn. So Tredsred really needs to do everything he can, and he has found the proc for the Octo. So he is going to be able to just put minions all over the place here.
And just potentially draw a ton of cards, right? He can go Octo, field contact, shadow step the Og Merchant and replay it on the Octo. Is that where you think he's going with that? Or is that a bit too
goodness.
Much?
I mean, whenever I look at Rogue, they always do more than I expect. I don't think it's too much. I think he'll find a way to make that into an absolutely disgusting turn. And again, remember, Wolder only has 3 mana next turn. So he only currently has a Lightning Bolt and his board to deal with any of this.
Could do this and wait a turn if he's feeling truly adventurous. Because this 10 will cost 0. The field contacts will cost 1. You'll get a 0 mana Wicked Stab. Like, whew.
I don't. Yeah, I like doing a lot of it now. Could hold the field contacts to a reload.
By wait a turn, I meant with the field contacts, right?
Okay,
you can hold the field contact in Tenwu, wait that 1 turn, and then go field contact next turn.
Yeah, the game has definitely turned around.
Wolder has picked up in Trap Sorceress, though, so he can fight back now. Tidal Wave? Anyone?
Probably. Flame's tempting as well, though, because it obviously Tidal Wave does your side of the board. But is he going to have a board? Does he care?
Well, I think Wolder has to have a fairly good read on this hand, or the read on these 3 cards of one being at least field contact as one card, right? Because Tredsred wouldn't just mass reduce his hand and then have just basic minions to play out, right? Like, what is he expecting to see? And if it's going to be field contact, you're expecting tons of card draw, in which often includes minions, right? He needs those battle cries to go off. So I do like Tidal Wave here. I think you expect this board to get cleaned up.
The Neophyte's going to be so disgusting with that Tidal Wave. It's going to buy him a whole extra turn. And this extra turn with double field contact, there's a Jandis lurking up there as well. This extra turn is going to get so much done, and Tredsred taking no chances, playing the Neophyte twice.
And although this may, again, I understand this, but you could say, oh, well, he could have gone for Perpetual Flame because you could play that through Neophytes, right? Yes, but there are 2 Divine Shield minions on board that you can't realistically proc in that instance, which means if that Perpetual Flame hits a Divine Shield minion, you probably lose the game at that point.
Yeah, if your opponent plays Neophyte and reads that you've got Tidal Wave, then good luck to them. As it happened, he ripped it off the top and dropped it on the board. That's far more likely. And now Wolder, the problem is if he plays double Slogger, he can't play the Tidal Wave next turn either because he'll be overloaded by too much.
What if he just plays Tiny Toys?
Yeah.
Like, he has Tidal Wave, right? So what are the odds on him actually dying next turn? And if he doesn't die, he Tidal Waves for like 1 million.
Yeah.
He's just going to play it safe, though. Go 1 Slugger, trade away the field contact, reduce the card draw down, hopefully, for Tredsred. And then he still can play Tidal Wave next turn if Neophyte isn't bounced or done something with or another one's played.
Yeah, that's what he's intending to do. Tredsred's got the read, though. Getting rid of the non-Divine Shield minions, etc.
I imagine he'll weak on the Warden.
Yeah, you'd think so.
Chuck it all face.
You know when Raven says that you put it on the bad minion, that you put it on the bad minion. Not even the mind games Raven
This one's not a mind games, right? There's one minion that's easily better because of the spellcast effect.
Absolutely. Back in it. Just.
Was a whole turn there, and bear in mind, Wolder has still not completed his quest, so he isn't going as crazy as you would expect on, turn 10 or turn 8 of a Shaman game, right? You're normally expecting to see some big things happen so far. Tredsred just going to put his foot down here, play the Alexstrasza, push damage once again, now that he's seen that the Tidal Wave's been used.
Big deal if Tredsred can get this done. I feel like this rogue, not weak enough to say it's a massive weak link, but certainly the one that looked a little bit more awkward than his other decks in this particular matchup. That's not me being anti-rogue. That's just looking at the numbers. It was definitely the slightly more difficult one to get a win with. So getting this out of the way will mean that Wolder's Mage will be the spotlight deck that needs to get job done if Tredsred can finish this off.
Against Serpent Shrine.
What he wanted. It's what he wanted to avoid having to risk a Tiny Toys, but still not ideal, obviously.
Yeah, he can kill off the Alexstrasza, though. Now he's only facing 2 1/3s in the form of the Octobots on board. I mean, realistically, at this point, what else is actually left for Tredsred that's a reasonable threat now that Wolder can play Brakan next turn?
Yeah, Manquick, Enraged Manquick. I think there's only the one stab. Whatever comes from one thief, some bits and pieces. He's got to get 23 damage through with it.
Fireball's going to help with that.
Yeah, it really is. It's a quarter of 23. Good start.
Of course, Wolder will be slightly limited with this Brakan turn. He won't be able to play Brakan Feral Spirits, which is probably the better thing he wanted to do.
That's really what he wants, isn't it? I tend to think that overload isn't a punishment until you get to these positions.
He does run an overdraft, right? And he's not played it, though. So I don't think he's played it unless I've missed it. So
I haven't seen it played.
He might still have his overdraft to draw, and then that would help him out a lot. But Tredsred, I think you have to say this is pretty much his final push, right? The minions he has in hand is nothing. He can replay this with a Shadow Step right now to make this even worse for Wolder. But if these minions get cleaned up, it is just a Fireball, Wicked Stab, Dream.
Yeah, there's the proof that he sees. It's the final push. It's Perpetual Flame. Do you rip it? If it hits in order in the right places, you're good. If it misses, you're so dead.
Well, he can bolt.
You have to lightning bolt first.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then do it right.
Hope it doesn't hit the enraged man quick.
Yeah. You just have to. Like, Feral Spirit just does nothing. It's just nowhere near enough.
Good luck, everybody, depending who you're cheering for.
Okay. 3.
Pew.
4. 5.
Pew.
Oh, my.
Pew.
Okay, not bad. It's not going to be enough, right?
6, 10, 16.
It's like dagger's enough to me.
Yeah.
Wicked Stab, rank 3, the Fireball from the One Maker, and the dagger to finish up the game. Wolder almost got there, and I think it's safe to say if he had the Brukan or had the wiggle room to activate and get Brukan down any earlier that game, he would have been fine. He also didn't have access to any charge calls, and I feel like this is the weakness you have to exploit when you're against Shaman, is the card draw is not great in any respect. They only really gather loads of resources when they can generate guidance. Post-Brukan, honestly, is when they have a turn, and they are heavily reliant on that charge call to actually finish games. So the fact that that was pretty much dodged there for Tredsred is a big deal, and he has managed to even this series up and getting a win with that Tempo Rogue.
Yep, and like I sort of said before, it looked like maybe the tidal wave had changed it around. I think that's a big deal for the series as a whole, because now the attention will shift across to this mage deck for Wolder, as everything else is basically equal. So interested to see how that goes, but it was such a good game, that one. Both sides doing what they could, and you said that he couldn't get it done because of the overload, but he was constantly overloaded because Tredsred kept that pressure coming throughout the whole game, and he played it nicely. He used the secret passage early, got more things reduced, held onto the field contacts to get that massive reload turn, realising that he had put enough out there already, and this is the net result, just having enough stuff to get over the finishing line.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff on the line there, and you can see if that Perpetual Flame would have actually hit that Mancrick, he would have potentially been safe and maybe gone from there based on what the One Thief was going to give Tredsred. That was game number 2, of course, both players evening it up. We are just going to go to a short break as we have a couple of technical difficulties, so we'll just have to step away for a minute while we sort that out for you guys. So our apologies, but we'll be right back. We are back and ready to continue with our match between Tredsred and Wolder. It's all even up now after Tredsred getting a victory with that rogue, and that means it is just going to be that mage and shaman versus the demon hunter and shaman, and it's going to be a very interesting one just to see how the X factor of the mage lines up into Tredsred's decks, because that's the one that sticks out a little bit, because the demon hunter versus mage matchup, for example, can be pretty tricky depending, which one gets the better end of the stick, I suppose. But looking at this, Tredsred is going to be starting off on his shaman for this next game, and again, double rust rot vipers. I don't know if I've spoke to you specifically about this, Lorinda, but what do you make of the almost excess of vipers included in this tournament metagame?
It's interesting, right? I think we've seen a lot of the fell demon hunter, about the brute demon hunters winning using the weapons sort of versions, so that's a thing. But if you're having tradable cards, there's not much to silence, so you don't really need a tradable silence in there, although we have seen it. Most of the decks don't need the spell damage, again, particularly this Quest Shaman, because it's good enough at dealing with things anyway. So going for the Viper's kind of the natural tradable card. We've seen aggressive Shaman decks. We haven't seen any in the tournament, but that's not the point. You don't know what's in the tournament before you come here. Right. We don't know what's in the tournament now. We are here. Like, we've been looking at the decks for a day. We still don't know what the main meta game is. There's Paladins. Goodness knows what's going on. But I do think that Weapon Destruction is the best pick if you're not sure what's going to be in the tournament.
Right, and he's going for that the double overdraft as well, so interesting to see how that works out. Again, I was speaking to Sottle, I think yesterday, just talking about, what do you think about overdraft? And like, one probably seems fine, not sure if two's overdoing it, because a lot of the time you only want to overdraft if you've already done the good things in your deck, and if you're running two overdrafts, that just means you are naturally going to draw less of those good things. And same can be said of the Vipers too. It's a non-overload card. It's an acceptable minion to just play as a spider tank, but in general it's not really what you want to be doing with the deck, right? And what you want to be doing when you need to accelerate the quest there from the shaman. And Wolder is going to be on this mage, and again, it's one of the iterations that has the double one thief, so Wolder choosing not to go with the Apexis Blast that a lot of players have kind of gravitated towards in the past week or so, and sticking with those one thieves, which does give him that little bit of extra advantage, just being able to at worst proc his own minions with those frost spells and such, to be able to accelerate his own quest.
Yeah, and this is Conquest, not Last Hero Standing, so this is a big deal. Getting your mage into the shaman is such a great matchup for the mage. See how that ends up. How did Sottle take the suggestion of taking only the one overdraft? Because he hates one obviously in general, but that argument seems extremely good in this particular spot.
Yeah, it's just, I think we had to stare and work out if it evened it up with a legendary or not. But obviously there's the quest and the 3-drop. So yeah, we'll have to review and get back to you on that one. But yeah, I think Mage, at least on stream, feels a little bit underrepresented. I have to look at all the stats and how far everyone has gone with Mage in their lineup. But I expected Mage to be pretty popular, even though it isn't necessarily the case, for example, on ladder, because I feel like it does have good matchups against what you're expecting. But it's surprising to see it in this lineup, because it feels like a heavy anti-aggro lineup, and Mage is susceptible to certain aggro decks.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? You look at Mage in general and you feel that, well, that just kills everything. It's got 1 million burn spells, but that's just not what Mage does at the moment. It's got 1 million spells, but it now has to mess around with the quest, and it means it has to take things in that don't necessarily remove opposing minions. Obviously, there's still some good cards. You see there, the Fire Sale in a different world would be a fantastic card in a mulligan, but this isn't the world for it. This is the world where you're just going to try and complete your quest and blow the shaman out of the game.
Yeah, it's one of those half logical but negative attitudes to go, well, shaman makes a lot of 3 health things or less that Fire Sale will clean up. So if Tredsred goes wide early on, it could just Fire Sale on turn 4, it's gone, move on from there. And although that's a completely valid thought pattern, it means you're not trying to mulligan for the cards you want to do your thing, right? Like, you want to, or Wolder will want to be more active on his pursuit of his quest, so he can actually get that done and move on with the game plan, as opposed to sitting back and waiting for Tredsred to do stuff and then reacting to it.
I tell you what, Tredsred is going to be doing stuff to react to, though. He has got a marvellous hand. It's a very hard matchup for the shaman. You really do need to just get a little bit lucky and now work this lot out, because he can do so much this turn and not pay too much overload for it.
Yeah, you can basically go Canal Slogger and Feral Spirit, right? And feel pretty good about it. I imagine that's going to be the play.
Give me my Fire Sale back quick. I'm in trouble.
Wolder's okay.
Next turn.
Well, Wolder kept hold of First Flame, which is a big deal as well. I spoke about being a negative or not, but First Flame does progress his fire side of his quest, and now we can see it pay off to an extent because he gets to double flame the Slogger.
Oh, Tredsred considering playing the Fireheart first, purely so that next turn he can play the Feral Spirits. Yeah, I like it. I like it so much. Like, unlucky. The value's not going to get me there. What's going to get me there is this massive early pressure. The other way around, he would be overloaded. He'd have nothing to do next turn. It's weird, but I love it.
Now with the pickup from Rune Orb, it actually fills out Wolder's mana a lot nicer, and again moves forward his quest a little bit. He can still use First Flame to finish off the Slogger, and then just require Frost to finish the first stage of his quest, which means he can Ice Barrier next turn and still cast Second Flame.
Yeah, this keeps turning out really, really well for him. Tredsred really understands this matchup. When you have a matchup that's very unfavoured, you have to do weird things to make it work. It's like, oh, but your thing died. You did the wrong thing. No, I was going to lose anyway. I gave myself a chance. That's often the argument you have to go with.
Right.
And next turn, I wouldn't be surprised to see him play Feral Spirits and say, if you've got Fire Sale, I lose. Unlucky me.
Yeah, a lot of the tough matchups, especially in this meta, it's quite polarizing. You have to just play as if they don't have the things you don't want them to have, right? And just go pretty aggressive or go pretty all in and just hope it pays off. We'll see now. Diligent Note Taker, not really going to change up the turn here for Tredsred.
It's just launching minions out there. Part of this is the knowledge that any sensible opponent's going to throw the Fire Sale away, so they've got to have drawn it. It's not going to be in their opener. Here come the Wolves!
Okay, you can get Fire Sale with that. Ooh. One of the drawbacks, of course, of playing minions in your deck and refreshing Spring Water is sometimes you draw them, which means a great reduction there in mana and gives Tredsred a little bit of breathing room here.
Imagine playing minions in a deck. Looking for more than the Viper. I was curious to see if he's going to plop that out there as well.
Note Taker Guidance?
Seems good to me.
Tough though, right? Because, for example, if he gets Charged Call from the Guidance, then he'll want to Note Taker the Charged Call, so it feels a little bit weird. But yeah, this is just more guaranteed value here.
He's just put himself on an imaginary clock of a few turns where the mage just kills him, and he's trying to beat that clock and hope the mage doesn't get to interact with him. Obviously the mage does fire spells. That's what they do. That's what mage does. The first thing you do as Jaina in the tutorial is, you know, burn face for 6 or burn a minion for 6. It's one of the very first things you learn in this game, but gotta risk it.
Discover could be huge though from stage 2 of the quest from Wolder. Devolving, not bad. Snap free. I mean, all these are reasonable.
Yeah, he's just starting to come under a bit of pressure, so maybe he'll feel the need to take a combustion.
Evolving could help him out because he has like Ignite and Second Flame, right? Make these minions much more killable.
Deal with quite a lot of stuff.
Only got 2 mana though, right? So
yeah,
can't deal with that much. He chose to Arcane Intellect, and of course that combustion was reduced. It looked like his hand was very cheap, when in fact it was not. Wolder has not played any Incanter's Flow yet.
And obviously I've spent the whole game talking as if only the minions get it done. You can close out as the Shaman with, you know, 6 to 9 points of burn as well. The mage almost certainly doesn't heal up unless they get an early ice block, and that's long since gone. So Tredsred now getting into range where Wolder's going to be in trouble because Tredsred's going to find some damage. There's 3 from the portal.
There's Charge Call. There's Brakan. And that was actually a really nice Perpetual Flame, because obviously in this matchup, you're not expecting to get a big Perpetual Flame off, but the fact that he got it off and limited it to that one overload, because it only went once, big deal. But speaking of big deals, Wolder gets hold of that Fire Sale at last. It will delay his quest progression, but he's on 12 health and facing down a big board, so pretty sure Fire Sale has to be the go-to right now.
Yeah, and this is the payoff for the arcane intellect he cast a couple of turns ago that, he ended up taking a lot of damage because of. He was trying to get nearer to this Fire Sale, and now he has got there because of that intellect. Now, whether it's going to be enough is a little bit difficult to tell, because Tredsred is very close. He's one spell away from just being able to win with the Portal and a Lightning Bolt, for instance, as soon as he plays that Brukan.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. Like, look, he's got the double investment as well, so the odds on him just drawing tons of damage.
The elements unbound.
Yeah, gonna go Brukan. Take the draw. No lightning bolts to help yet.
How many guidances does he have?
All of them, Lorinda. All of them.
So any 3 damage burn, any burn, and he just wins the game. But he's got to be quick, because Wolder is now in this race.
Yep, has the cram session. The only thing really that's really limited Wolder, he's put a great emphasis on card draw this game, as we've seen Arcane Intellects used to cycle at an absolutely maximum rate. But he just hasn't hit the flows, right? He needs to watch more European Grandmasters. Take some...
Yeah, right?
Because the flows, like, look at this hand if it was flowed, right? The game would have just ended. Like, he just wins.
Can he find Lightning Bolt?
That looked like a Lightning Bolt to me, Lorinda.
He can find it. And that's lethal. Well played, Tredsred. Just threw caution to the wind. And as early as turn 2, yeah, he's well happy. As early as turn 2 with that Fire Heart, where he chose not to overload, or turn 3, so that he could play the Feral Spirits as well on curve. Got his curve tidied up and knew his win condition was to partly hope for the best. Wolder also played his part, digging for cards to make sure he found the Fire Sale, the one that he threw away. But it's right to throw it away, because you don't expect your Shaman opponent to launch all those 2-3s at you that early. Really sweet game of Hearthstone.
Yeah, really big win just in terms of how the lineups clash as well. Tredsred only has his Fell Demon Hunter left over now to take on the Mage from Wolder and the Quest Shaman from Wolder as well. And again, like the Fell Demon Hunter versus Quest Shaman, I know there's been some discussion about how people feel about that matchup, but I feel fairly confident. I think things would have to go quite wrong for the Fell Demon Hunter to fall that far behind against Quest Shaman, or let Quest Shaman get Brukan into charge calls off into the late game. I think things have to go pretty wrong in that instance. So Tredsred looking pretty good, and not only because he's 2-1 in this series.
Yeah, he's playing nice Hearthstone, obviously put in the work, and he always did. I mean, I say he always did as if he's sort of somebody from the past, but we knew him when he was coming up through the scene, and then a lot of the other Japanese players sort of caught him up and have taken a lot of the limelight from him. But he's been here plodding away. This is his 12th Masters Tour, it might be his 11th, I think it's his 12th. Huge number of tournaments, just not quite had that big finish. Like I said, I think his best finish was 20th. So looking for a breakout here, a breakout, another breakout, a re-breakout, a break back out. What am I looking for? Give me some words. Breaking back out.
Breakout was a good game, right? Probably around your era, was it?
I have played Breakout in the arcade, yeah.
There you go, see?
You turn one button left and right, that's it. That's the whole controller.
Well, let's dive into this game now. Wolder going to be queuing Mage first to go against this Demon Hunter. And this is a bit of a tricky matchup, because a lot of the Demon Hunter cards are like minion removal, right? And I'm not talking about the Fell Barrage you can see, but the Leech and even Fell Scream and such. There are instances where you win this with the Elganoth turn because of the damage permanence that Mage has. But it can be just a little bit tricky. You can push some damage, then suddenly an Ice Barrier makes things a little bit awkward, and then that can give the Mage enough time. So yeah, I think it's a really close matchup, so I'm pretty excited to get this one going.
Yeah, not one that I played a lot, so I'll lean on you a little bit on this one. I've been playing a lot of Fell the last couple of days, ever since I saw how many were submitted. And Sottle gave me a crash course as well yesterday. I was playing it all morning. but not bumped into many majors. So a little bit weak on this particular matchup. But it does strike me that it's a straight burn race, is how it feels to me. Obviously, you've got a chance as the Demon Hunter to make a couple of minions try and stick, but not really going to do much with them a lot of the time.
Yeah, and in a lot of instances, I really think the Demon Hunter, Tredsred in this instance, has to just go with the flow of what his hand gives him, right? Because, yes, it's nice to go Il'gynoth and like half combo at that point to kill the mage, great. But that doesn't always happen, right? And you have to try and focus elsewhere. So even if, for example, an Il'gynoth was drawn on 6, there's a chance that Tredsred just throws it out and says, okay, if you want to freeze this every single turn of the game, well, 1, you need the cards to, and 2, that might take up time from you doing other things, and it's threatening that 8 damage all the time. There's also an option where you can just not play minions and hope that it actually delays your opponent enough to, start piecing together either an Il'gynoth combo or going for a big Jace turn. But it really does just depend on how quickly you draw one of those big key pieces in the deck.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how he goes about this with this skull as well. I was assuming he was going to Felgorger this turn and then mess around next turn and then skull the turn after, but who knows?
And this is why and how it gets tricky and why the matchup can be difficult. Because, yeah, Tredsred wants to skull, of course he does, but that involves him playing minions into mage, and we can see that would benefit Wolder greatly. He has not only Brain Freeze, but double Flurry, so he could just freeze whatever over the course of 2 turns and really blast through that quest if he can get hold of arcane spells. So this is one of those tough decisions, right? His hand isn't being that nice to him here for Tredsred. But can he just pass? Can he just equip a weapon and pass? Does he equip a weapon swing a little bit? Yeah, it's tough.
So if he wants to kill his own minion, he can currently not do that until turn 6, where he'd Felgorge a coin and Chaos Leech his own minion. That's a long way away.
Well, that means he could kill his Moag, right?
7.
Could kill his Moag this turn if he wants to get rid of it.
Sure, but then he's still got to kill off the Felgorge. That's why I get to his skull.
Yep.
It was funny watching, as he does do the Moag thing, watching Yala playing the mirror with the mages, where both players are playing minions and killing their own minions to stop anybody being able to target them. It's a big deal slowing down that quest, of course it is.
Wolder now does get hold of a much earlier Incantus Flow than he had in his previous games. That's going to give him a little bit of hope, at least. But there's always the hope as well for Tredsred that he can maybe draw into something that helps him kill off his Felgorger with the Felgorger, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he's got a better hand this time though, Wolder. He's actually decided to draw the flows, both of them. Maybe watch some of that European Grandmasters you were talking about. Yeah, now Tredsred is just going to leave the damage out there.
I'm really surprised he went for those Furies that turn.
I think maybe he's decided he only wins with a Jace from the skull.
Right, but he can't play that next turn anyway. If he drew Jace, it would be 5 mana from Skull, which means he could have cast the 0 mana Fury and the 1 mana Fury anyway, and still double proc it on Jace. And if he doesn't get it, he has Eldrazi Warblades in hand, right? So then he can like Eldrazi double Fury to heal up some damage if he's going to get burst down.
Yeah.
There's of course the fear that by the time Dawngrasp hits the board, the turn after, you can be 30'd quite easily. So of course I understand that holding on to it with the Eldrazi Warblades isn't necessarily guaranteed life. But I felt like those Furies were easy enough to squeeze into other turns.
Okay, yeah, they were pretty cheap. Let's see how it works out for him.
Wolder just cycling through, makes sense.
Yeah. Completing quest after quest, or part after part, whatever. I don't know what we call the parts of a quest line. Are we just calling the quests? Either way, all the way through to the portal room now, and is ready to start doing plenty of damage. The Tredsred needs this skull to be a good one. Wants lots of damage. He did pick up a Fell Barrage at the start of the turn as well.
Not the best. He has got skull number 2, but he knows he's going to be facing down Dawngrasp very, very soon. The good thing is, though, with Flow, only one being cast, and they're quite late into the game in terms of just where we are in the game right now. Tredsred probably isn't expecting to die this turn, right? It's not like Wolder can realistically play Dawn Grasp and pop off in the same turn.
I think I know why he's been attacking, because he just attacked with the Chaos Strike there when he didn't need to as well. I think he might want to be calling it, so if he ever sees an Ice Barrier, he just stops attacking and tries to win with combo. So he wants to get all that attacks to face through now, so that he can call it off and go for the combo finish if he sees a barrier.
Alas, poor Wolder.
It's really tough though, right? Because on the other hand, well,
That's ruined Raven's conversation.
Yeah, that's the kind of skull you want, because you can do really dumb things, because you like pre-equip Aldraki and then go Jace, Il'gynoth swing, haha, 1 million damage.
Mm-hmm. Also, if he just picks up spell damage, he has like the more traditional ways of winning coming up.
Yeah.
It was great. I love it when that happens. It happens to me all the time. I'm glad it didn't just happen to me. Where you're discussing something perfectly reasonable and logical as to why things might not work, and as you're saying it, the nuts just drops into your opponent's hand, or the guy you're talking about's hand.
It's a great skull, though. I think the only thing that would have been better is if he'd got... Well, he's already played one and got one in the hand, but like he needed something to kill the Dawngrass this turn. That's the problem. It's just taking 7 is not something you want to do right now.
It's not my favourite thing to do, must admit. $21. Will it get there? It's Mage with 1 million flows. Well, 1 flow.
Certainly stacking up that spell damage.
Yeah. Pretty scary.
It's one of those tough calls, right? Like, do you flow because that 3 mana you spend on flow saves you 4 mana with the cram session, but your overall pool is reduced?
Yeah, that's one of those things that comes with feel, isn't it? You know exactly how many spells you might need to cast. There's the barrier. Bit late. He's just pointing things at face. Biscuit. Biscuit's so good in this spot to have set up.
Time runs out on me.
Rope's going.
It's going to flow now.
Now he flows. I think he gave himself a chance to hit other things. That's 7. Then when he whiffed, that's 11.
That's just game. As long as he locked it in with the attack. Yeah, really.
Wow.
The sheer power of Mage when it can land a Dawn Grasp as a reasonable time, and of course the big deal there was him having access to the double cram session in his hand, right? That's what you need. It's not only getting Dawn Grasps down, but having access to that premium card draw as well. So Wolder is going to even this one up, which now means we land in the final game, which is going to be the Demon Hunter versus the Quest Shaman, and again, although Tredsred lost that game, I do think he is still quite favoured here. It's a matchup where, as you can just see in the way the deck's built for the Demon Hunter, you can kill any minion or any set of minions really between turns 1 and 4 and 5 maybe. And you can wipe like most boards pretty easily. It's only if Brakan gets like super accelerated out and then suddenly big charge calls hit the board where Demon Hunter will struggle. Very similar in the way they struggle versus Handlock, right? The minions are a little bit too big and a little bit too consistent as well.
Yeah, I feel like that happens more often than maybe you're leading me to believe. Because the Shaman can just go for that rapid Brakan. It knows that it's the exact opposite of what we saw happen earlier with Tredsred trying to just get every minion out there. The Shaman can just mess about with blooms and stuff and just go through the quest pretty rapidly, get in position where everything's getting cast twice, get some guidances, maybe a flame heart, and bam, you've done a load of damage. So it's a bit of a weird race, this one, I feel. Be curious to see how it plays out. I think we might see a lot more of this matchup through the day, and I think it might be a deciding matchup through the day for a lot of games as well.
And we see Tredsred now keeping hold of that Felgorger, just wanting to keep the cycle going and making sure he doesn't just have one of those games where he draws dead because there's so much card draw in the deck, but it isn't to the likeness of, say, OTK Demon Hunter or Brute Demon Hunter, right? So there are certain games where you just miss out on Skull, you don't quite get hold of that Chaos Strike, and then suddenly you're looking at like 2 cards in hand and no great way to deal with anything.
Interesting decision now. This will tell us where his mind is at. Like, do you want a minion? Do you want some defense?
Grows short.
There isn't much to kill, but your minion's probably going to get killed. But he's a 3/4, and Shaman's trading 3s. I'll be interested to see if he takes the Kurtrus here.
In between that and I-Beam, honestly. Just going to go for Kurt. But the really great thing about Kurt is you just don't need it to be outcast to be good, right? Like,
Yes.
the minion just attacking twice, especially as you mentioned against Shaman, which doesn't really run too many 4-attack minions, means that it will put 6 damage onto the board.
Yep. Wolder not messing around either. Like, he had the option to go a little bit slower here so that he gets the note taker effect guaranteed, because this is probably going to die quite often here.
I can just Chaos Leech this away.
I grow impatient.
And that's a win, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Note taker not getting spell burst is a big deal here for Tredsred.
But Wolder knew this was likely, so if Wolder's valuing the tempo of, okay, well, at least I get my sorceress down next turn now.
Right.
Might actually get the portal out of the way is an option here he's got to consider.
Yeah, I like the Vivid Spores. I was just going to say, one of the hardest matchups I came across when I was playing Fell Demon Hunter, weirdly enough, was Death Rattle Demon Hunter. Because I said there's tons of ways to clear boards for Demon Hunter, for Fell Demon Hunter right now, but it felt like there wasn't enough ways to clear like waves of boards. So I think Vivid Spores, if Wolder can get to it, is going to be pretty clutch.
Yeah, I actually ran into that matchup too, and I had Sottle with me at the time, sort of lurking on the shoulder, telling me how bad I was. And it looked like we might be able to fatigue the Death Rattle Demon Hunter, but that was the only chance, because there was wave after wave. It did thwart any attempts to come back.
What to do?
Have you heard?
Job's done.
Just this weird battle for the board between 2 decks that don't care about the board that much. It's really funny. Because they've got nothing
I
better
think
to do
Shaman
for
cares
now.
about the board. At least.
He wants to get some damage through for sure, yeah.
Sure.
But they sort of both do.
It's going to Perpetual. This should unlock the crystals, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
It's one of those hands I was talking about as well for Tredsred.
Toys.
Just hasn't got tons of card draw, no Skull available yet. This Fell Gorge's probably going to have to put in some work here, but this Curtis, doesn't look half bad to me.
Looking forward to this Tiny Toys.
Ooh, does he
One of my favourite cards coming into the expansion.
really?
For vengeance.
I'm a little bit surprised there. He could have just saved that Immolation Aura and just used his hero power to do the final damage, right?
Right. Interesting.
Because Immolation Aura, when you're running, Arcanist... Oh, wait, actually, let me just trip.
Ooh! Look at these toys.
Ouch. Hey, Loren, do you know what card would be pretty sweet right now?
Yeah, Immolation Aura would be rather decent, right?
And honestly, I was not saying not play the Immolation Aura because I could see toys, of course. Like, I'm just saying from a point of view, it was just take 3 damage with your hero power, right? Like, that felt reasonable to keep hold of a whole card in your hand.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it made sense to me too. I know you don't do that, Raven.
Well, I tried my best not to. I tried my best not to.
We all do it accidentally occasionally, of course.
Marsh Spawn, remember now, that has the +2 spell damage.
Curious to see how he navigates this grey bow weirdness. Grey bow, I guess.
Wait, can he do something really weird here?
What to
So if he trades
looking
the
at-
2/2, Grey Bow appears, right?
Yep.
Can he Vivid Spores with the Novice and Hero power?
Yep.
Is that just nutty?
Stuff's going to happen here, Raven.
It is,
I think
right?
it's
Isn't that
nutty.
just
I think you're right.
insane? Like, what
Yeah, I
does
think you're
Tredsred
right.
ever do?
Then he has to go to plan B and C.
Because Clades just won't work.
Yep. I think you're right.
Shows little time.
He decided that just 2's fine. Yep.
Okay.
So many trees.
Like Greybow high five, gonna happen soon. Arcanist Fell Scream Blast will push through a ton of damage, but again, this stuff just comes back, and this is what I was talking about, right? Obviously, it's not helped that Tredsred used up his Immolation Aura earlier on, but this is the difficulty you see. You see, okay, well, Arcanist Fell Scream seems great. Oh wait, it's all back again. But Tredsred does have Jace next turn.
I'm going to say out of cards apart from the good card that he has, but he's going to need it.
Wolder needs value here to sustain through this Jace. Tidal Waves. Probably Runic, so he can refill, right? He knows he's going into turn 8. He knows Tredsred is conveniently sound one card. Yes, it could be anything, but it also could be Jace. So yeah, I like the Runic Carvings here. Just hold it for the refill. Because then, pretty much Tredsred just needs to get Skull at that point. Outside of that, maybe just like a raw Il'gynoth on board could help, speaking of which.
Jace will probably pick up a card or two as well.
Yeah.
He does.
Wait, has he played a Chaos Strike?
I mean, I've lost track if I'm perfectly
think
honest,
he's-
but there's...
I want to say he's not played Chaos Strike, but I could easily...
Okay.
We'll eventually get through this Greybow. Yeah, no Chaos Strike, I thought so. A little bit unfortunate there. Tredsred doesn't get to, as you mentioned, draw more cards from Jace, but Jace did its job. It cleaned up the board. And now Wolder's got to start again.
Fireheart, I think, first, with no overloaded crystals, is such a good spot to be.
Vivid
Charge Call will
Spores.
do.
Yeah, Charge Call's pretty good. Can't
Or
go
Auctioneer.
for gadgets and devolving, but can it be better than Cairn?
Can. Are you okay there, Raven?
I don't know. That Cairn just never dies at this point with Jace gone, right? It's just a 5/5 forever.
Right. But if the Auctioneer doesn't die, then Wolder wins. This? We're talking about needing a skull. Wolder's made his own skull.
Yeah.
Best skull anywhere.
Another charge call from the guidance. From the guidance, sorry, he was offered guidance, yeah. That's me not realising the picture was wrong. Yeah, he went for charge call there from the Fireheart, of course.
Ooh, nothing doing for Tredsred. This is almost over because he's used his Jace. Obviously, Il'gynoth always gives you a chance, but look at the damage this Auctioneer is going to do. He's going to cycle through everything now.
Oh, he's going to go devolving, okay. Just reduce down the card draw as much as possible. I was also looking at, yeah, Canal Slugger to trade, heal back up to 28. Why take any chances? And he can still charge call. Yeah, I like this.
Yeah, he's doing the thing we talk about, which is, how do I lose this game? Oh, my opponent draws more cards. Okay, let's stop that then, even though it looks weird. Second thing, how do I lose? Okay, he 24s me. Okay, let's gain 6 health.
Did he go Plague? Oh, he's going Alakir, okay. I wonder whether he went Plague there, because again, it's just more sustain on board, and he has to work around what's the worst thing that could happen. Skull into, like, I don't know, Moag, Immolation Aura, or, you know, whatever, with the natural draw as well. So I was wondering whether he went Proto Drake there, just because of the Death Rattle, but it does not matter. Wolder got away with it. Big win there on the Shaman, and a very back and forth series as well. I thought Tredsred was in a great position to take the series, but the Demon Hunter just did not get there for him.
No, Wolder keeping his cool, played pretty solidly throughout there. 1 or 2 small issues with the Mage, we're being told, but overall looked very solid, knew what his game plans were, knew what the dangers were from his opponent. First time we've seen him on screen, so that's always a test that needs to be passed, especially when you're playing against a veteran like Tredsred as well. He kept himself together. It didn't look like he was particularly nervous. Just a little sort of exhale. Yes, I've done it on stream at the end. You can sort of see that relief that we get to see from newer people that we see for the first time. He looks great.
Like I said, it feels like this could be the moment for him, because I'll just read this off again. Swids, Luna, Tincho, Letter, and now Tredsred. The 5 people he's beaten this Masters Tour, his 5 opponents, are all people we know very well and are all very, very strong Hearthstone players. So even if he stops at top 8, stops at top 4, whatever, doesn't win the whole thing, I think he could be very proud at the end of this tournament that he went 5-0 so far in Swiss, beating very prominent and very strong Hearthstone players. So a really, really good run so far for Wolder. But that is just one match out of round number 5, our first round of 4 of the day. We've got plenty more coming up for you guys. So we're going to go to a quick break while we find you some more matches to watch. We'll be right back.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Masters Tour Silvermoon. My name is TJ, I'm joined by Sottle, and we have the pleasure of bringing you some more round 5 coverage as the round is still ongoing and we're waiting to see who is going to get that 5-0 score. Sottle, I believe we're going to be jumping into a match between Norwis and HKroms, or HKroms, or HKroms, or HKroms. One of those. How you doing, Sottle? How you doing?
I'm doing great. I was wondering how long that was going to go on for, because in typical TJ fashion, I think you might have gone through every possible permutation before I was allowed to speak. But I came in early, and that's fine.
Whoa, wait!
I'm I'm feeling good. What's happening?
It's probably not that. If it's backwards, it's Smork H.
Okay, you found it. Good. And in keeping with that, we are going to see a good number of aggro decks in this series because HKroms is running a Face Hunter in his deck. He also does have the Shadow Priest, and he also has Brute Demon Hunter, which you can kind of regard as an aggro deck. It tries to play a bunch of 7/8s. Yeah, it tries to play a bunch of 7/8s on turn 4 and then hit you in the face with them. Norwis on the other side, similar stuff, honestly. He has the Shadow Priest, he has the Face Hunter, but he also has a Elemental Shaman thrown in there, Doomhammer variant, so kind of straight up aggro shaman as opposed to the quest shaman that's become more ever present with far watch posts in his shaman as well, which is the deck we are going to take a look at straight away. You see it there in all its immaculate 2-ofs and legendaries beauty, TJ.
It's the ultimate anti-combo deck, right? The far watch post, just to make all of their combo stuff cost more, and then a Doomhammer. What more could you ask for? That's about all you need. There are a lot of Rustrot Vipers, though, throughout the metagame. I think that we've had metagames in the past as well where Weapon Rogue and Doomhammer Shaman have coexisted, and thus weapon removal is very prevalent. I think this is one of those metagames, and Rustrot Vipers probably or not, I don't want to say this, but it's very close to the best weapon removal ever printed, just because of the fact that in matchups where it's not good, you can trade it away and get something else, and you're not stuck with this dead card in hand. So, but thus far, it seems like he's been doing quite well. So he's been dodging those Vipers.
He has indeed, or, you know, it's not like this is a one-dimensional deck, right? Like, if you're playing against a Viper deck, you don't even necessarily have to go for the Doomhammer plan. This deck with, you know, Granite Forgeborn, Wailing Vapor, all of those aggressive elemental starts you can come up with, land an Arid Stormer early, start pushing Wind Fury with that. Maybe just drop your Rockbiter weapon on that in the end and push damage. So if you've got a deck that is, you know, like if you look at a deck like Brute Demon Hunter, right? Like they might play that Rustrot Viper in there to be able to deny your Doomhammer and feel pretty good about it, but they're not going to be able to answer your board if you just curve out with elementals. So I think Doomhammer Shaman does still have a good chance against the Vipers, and still in most decks they do still have to pay 4 for that Viper, which is a lot of mana when you're trying to be aggressive against them. The exception to that is kind of Demon Hunter because of the way the game works right now, which is not entirely correct. The Viper, if you discount it from a quest step draw, if you discount it from Kurtrus, then shuffle it back into your deck and draw it again, it retains all those discounts and then gets re-discounted, so you can end up playing it incredibly cheaply. I won't bore you with why that is currently working the way it is, but it's a very interesting story if you're me and like knowing little nerdy things about how the game works, but it's not working as intended right now.
Can always count on Sottle to teach me things each and every day of my life.
There you go.
Fantastic. But we're going to be seeing Face Hunter from HKroms. That's what I'll go with for now until I'm told otherwise. A Moonfang thrown into this bad boy. A little bit of an interesting inclusion, especially considering there are 0 Trampling Rhinos. Still running double Warsong Wrangler though, so you know we're looking at Volpertingers and the Moonfang as pulls. It's a pretty interesting Face Hunter lineup. I think that Trampling Rhinos in a lot of matchups are just good, right? In board-centric matchups, you're pushing damage while also dealing with board states. But if you're pulling a Moonfang from a Warsong Wrangler, that thing is hard to kill.
Yeah, that thing is just sticking. Like, even the classic interaction with, like, Moarg, Immolation Aura on the other side, like, sometimes will struggle to get there if you've got it up big enough. But in this case, we are going to be looking at an early curve, double Intrepid Initiate on coin, the absolute dream for HKroms. Just going to keep one of them, look for the big payoff spell to go with it. I respect that. Does find Wound Prey in the end. But it is going to be that early battle from the board, and honestly, Norwis has just hit the absolute nuts for this matchup. Discount on 1 into Arid Stormer on 2. Cannot ask for more than that in this situation. And now you see already HKroms is extremely hesitant as to about how he wants to play into this, because he knows the vanilla good play this turn will get blown out against the potential of Arid Stormer. He might, I suppose you can Wound Prey the minion, trade into the minion, but even then you're not playing Adorable Infestation, right? So it's still just miserable.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. At this point, you kind of just there's yeah. This is a big ol' yikes. That wriggling horror is going to be stranded for this entire game. Essentially, you know, unless he's going to be playing. Oh, jeez, playing it proactively on like a Volpertinger board or something along those lines. Okay, Wound Prey, coin wriggling horror, excuse me, puts enough power on the board to threaten the first Arid Stormer. However, this is the kicker. There's two!
Alright, so game 4, TJ. Moving on. We are looking in pretty good shape here for a series win for Norwis. This is a bad beat for HKroms for sure, because he's tilted his Face Hunter in a very board-based direction, right? We talked about losing Rhino, going for Moonfang, which kind of plays towards sticking minions a little bit more, makes your deck a bit more mid-rangey than just pushing straight up damage. He's playing double wriggling horror as well, which supports the same idea. And then he's run into an equally impressive board-based deck that has just drawn the absolute nuts on the other side, and there's no real comeback mechanism in his deck. This is the kind of start where you would wish that Warsong Wrangler was going to draw you a Rhino, right? And then you pick up True Aim Crescent and you just lock yourself into playing from behind as the Hunter and just clearing up and pushing damage with the Rhino. But there's just no option here.
Job done.
Yeah, he will be able to build a pretty sizable board next turn. It's just, at this point, it feels too late. I imagine Norwis is just going to, well, count damage, pushes 10 this turn, right? Has enough mana for Storm Strike next turn. Okay, I like this actually. Put a bigger minion on board, knowing that there's no Rhinos, and then the Doomhammer next turn will be enough to end the game, or Storm Strike, I guess, would be even more damage. If
I mean, this wins too, but yeah, the damage was just kind of getting there, right? Does he still have lethal setup with the trade? So he pushes 6, 10. Yeah, he still has lethal setup with the trade, right? So this pretty much locks it up, because you know HKroms probably is not going to spend his turn just shooting minions off the board here. Ringling's Rifle is a decent draw. Certainly one of the better draws in the deck, but it still looks like it's not going to get anywhere close.
Yeah, doesn't even hit explosive, which seems to be a trend, honestly. All the matches on broadcast where we watch these situations where someone Ringling rifles for a desperation explosive trap and doesn't hit it. And he's got to play as if it's there, but not really any way to do that. So just going to check face, and that'll do it.
Yeah, I was going to say he might just get away with it for a turn, because Norwis might just have to respect the explosive trap. Then I started looking at ways to do that, and it just isn't really there. I think because of the hand he had, he could have bailed out anyway. So if he'd have traded in and the explosive trap had gone off, he could have just like Storm Striked one of the minions, right? Still had a huge Wind Fury attack from the Inara and doesn't really lose that much equity from hitting the explosive trap. So I think in the end, good decision just to go for it then.
Yeah, and in these kind of, board-centric matchups, especially like you mentioned with HKroms going with an even more board-centric strategy with his Face Hunter, I mean, 1, being on the play great, 2, just having a great opening, which is what Elemental Shaman, whether it's aggressive or full-on Elemental package, is what it relies on in a lot of cases to get the job done. So 2-1 Norwis. Final deck remaining is the Miracle Celestial Druid. 1 Destined Shell.
Whoa! What is going on here, TJ? Hang on a moment. Hang on just a minute. What has happened here? Someone's had a disaster. Why do you only want 2 turtles in your deck? Clearly you want 4 turtles. That can be 8 turtles with solar eclipses. What is going on?
What's the other
lack of
usually?
turtle-based gameplay in this deck. All right, TJ, I'm upset.
It's the growth, right?
It's the wild growth, yeah. Yep, he's playing 2 wild growth instead of 1.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know. I guess it's fine.
I think it's interesting because he himself has such an aggro-based lineup, and generally there's a trend where people will subconsciously tech their decks towards what they're doing, because they've come up with it. They think it's a good idea, therefore they think other people will do it as well. And obviously, -1 Best in Shell, +1 Wild Growth is obviously a huge loss against Face Hunter, Shadow Priest, Elemental Shaman, all the decks that he's also bringing himself. So a little bit strange to see it working out here, because Best in Shell is very often just your win condition against those decks, more so than the actual Celestial Alignment part of your deck.
Yeah. You gotta survive to get to that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's no... I mean, this deck really does not have any tools to survive other than that.
Yep. Couple of Lunar Eclipses, couple of Feral Rages, really nothing that's going to make a significant impact. Nature Studies can help out sometimes as well, but this is a very sketchy-looking mulligan for Norwis, because obviously those are the two I win the game cards on the left, the Auctioneer and the Anaconda, after you hit Celestial. And obviously I keep talking about how Best in Shell... Did he just keep it? He did, right? Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And I was just about to say, here's the way he's built his deck, right? He's doubled up on Wild Growth, he still has 2 Overgrowths, 2 Innovates, 2 Lightning Blooms. So he could... Oh, okay. He full mode. It was the exact opposite. Fine.
Okay. I was going to say, that. So Lady Anaconda, great. You know, that's I win card, but a lot of times that's not how you win against Hunter. Like, Best in Shell, a lot of times, is how you win against Hunter. In fact, I just did a quick search, and it's not a huge sample size. Well, I mean, it's 5,000 games total. I'm not sure exactly how many are against Hunter, maybe 500-ish. Lady Anaconda is the single worst mulligan win rate card in the deck, by a full 3% behind Nourish. Pretty brutal. Nature Studies, Overgrowth, Feral Rage, Best in Shell are all very close, within a percentage point of each other. Which I would expect that. Lightning Bloom and Lunar Eclipse are pretty high up there as well. So it's basically just all of the defensive tools plus ramp is what you want, which honestly makes a lot of sense. Still a terrible matchup, though.
Okay, he does find Solar. Does not have access to the Lightning Blooms, though. But I think that is very often one of the ways that you scam this matchup against Hunter. You look for Lightning Bloom, Solar, and Best in Shell. Try and throw an Overgrowth into the curve there as well, just so you get enough mana to access it. But this is not looking like the hand. This is looking like he's about to get smoked by a Felmore.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Oh, 1 card off. There was a chance. If Overgrowth was 1 card closer to the top of the deck, there was a chance this game. With those turtles in hand, with Solar, like I said, you just look for that Lightning Bloom draw, but quite rightly, he just has to cycle them away. He's so far away from being able to use that as a win condition that he just had to get hunting. But this is just obnoxious levels of damage.
Yeah, and that's just game, right? If he overgrows, he just dies to the damage on board. Actually, lethal setup with just hero power, it's lethal showing.
Feral Rage. Nope.
Fungal Fortunes into even double Lightning Bloom Feral Rage. The Bloom costs 1, so it only gains 1 mana.
That's true, yeah.
Because of the Cold Neophyte.
Yeah.
All right. Cool game.
Yeah, I mean, 2 pretty one-sided games to kick off the roundup here for round 5 on the day, but that is to be expected. It's an utterly miserable matchup. You know, when we saw X-Bly's running away with rank 1 Legend with Celestial Druid, as he has done with various decks, he was inexplicably winning matchups against Hunter and Shadow Priest, but you're just absolutely not supposed to do that. We did see it earlier on in the broadcast, I think, very early on day 1, where, or maybe it was in Grandmasters actually, I'm not 100% sure, where the hand was thrown away that we saw there, very similar from Norwis with the Lady Anaconda, and they just came right back again, and then that hand did actually end up winning, but that is a huge anomaly, and I was very surprised to see what I thought was a full keep there, but I had this thing in the back of my head, like maybe he just trusts his deck with 2 Wild Growths in there, but yeah, here you go, went for the full mulligan, went for those anti-aggro options, did pick up the Lunar Eclipse, which even with how quickly he died, that Lunar Eclipse saved him, what, 9 damage over the course of the game by killing that Intrepid Initiate on turn 1. So you can see just how quickly a Hunter's able to kill the Druid in that matchup.
Yeah, pretty one-sided. Pretty one-sided. This one, a little different. HKroms also has Farwatch posts in the Brute Demon Hunter. Quite interesting. I honestly am not even sure what was cut to make that happen. Take a look at the list, because it still has Spirit Jailers, Philosophies, Illidari Studies,
Fury.
I mean, those are all core. Fury, yeah. 1 Chaos Strike, and then cut the Furies for the Farwatch post. Yeah.
Which is, honestly, it doesn't quite seem like that would have an impact, but that has a significant impact on how often Hearthstone brutes you, right? If you cut Fury for a 2-mana card instead, because one of the big upsides of Fury is that it's so cheap to just dump from outcast positions that you can then have these insane pop-off turns, right? Or you draw it on an Acrobatics turn and it costs 0 because Acrobatics procs your first quest. You just play that and like a double jump or whatever, and then boom, you get bruted. But if you're replacing that with a card that costs 2, you are going to significantly slow down your card draw, as weird as that sounds, even though neither of those cards draw cards in and of themselves.
Just bruting all over the world.
For no one.
HKroms is. Just keeps it.
I mean, this is the win condition, right? Like, pre-alignment or post-alignment. Like, if you can get Brute down early, obviously Druid just capitulates to huge minions. And then if you have Brutes in your hand and alignment gets cast, they cost 0 by default because you draw the card at the start of your turn. So
Still interesting as a keep, though, right?
Yeah.
Just because if you're keeping it, you're not keeping or hitting card draws consistently, so your chance to actually get it online quickly is limited. Because he didn't keep it with guaranteed draw. He kept Illidari Studies, Brute, and obviously Quest, drew into off the mulligan Sigil, and so now it has to like rely on hitting draw off the top or Illidari Studies hitting draw, which, you know, is a good chance. All right, there's double jump. There's certainly a possibility of a Brute next turn.
yeah, we'll draw 2, have the Illidari Studies potential, depending on what these draws are. These early Brute pop-offs, like the turn 3, turn 4 Brutes, very much rely on what your initial draws on the turn are for a thing like Sigil, because those cards will then, of course, get discounted again as you complete the quest. So there's a good chance, like, for a Acrobatics to go down to 1 mana, right? And then you play that with the coin, you complete another quest step, and then that discounts your hand again. With those Furies that I was talking about before, that HKroms doesn't hit, you draw 2 0-mana cards that you can play off the Acrobatics that got discounted, and then boom, you've drawn through half your deck in 1 turn, drawn like 10 cards, played a Philosophy, dumped all your Brutes on the board. But I don't think HKroms' build of the deck is very good at doing that, so we'll see how these turns go for him over the next 1 or 2 turns.
This would be a perfect turn to get Brutes down, though. Norwis actually goes for Bloom, Innervate, Nourish for crystals. With no card draw in hand.
Oh, he's getting bruted.
Is he?
Nope. Never mind.
If he glides here, Norwis is probably ecstatic.
Yep.
He gets 1 extra card and gets to throw away all this garbage.
Coin weight is interesting because that means he's deliberating just playing Kane on the board, right? Which wouldn't make a great deal of sense to me.
Even if he double jumps here, like he still can't play Brutes even if he hits Spectral Sight, right? Unless Spectral Sight also hits something good.
If he was going to play double jump that turn, there was no reason to coin first, right? Because you don't know what you're hitting on double jump. You could just hit Crimson Sigil Runner. So the coin weight was just like an interesting cadence to the turn, I suppose.
Very interesting opening sequence here for HKroms.
Okay.
Oh, alignment on curve.
the Brute did come into the hand, though. HKroms might just glide it all away again, though. Here's the thing. You will be able to get that alignment down before the quest reward, which is big deal number 1. But the big deal number 2 is how many Brutes your opponent can play in response. Oh, and it looks like it might be
it's
a
Spectral Sight. They're still not active, though. They're still going to cost 1, I believe, because of the discount and then 2 more draws.
Yup.
Can't play him again.
Whiffed. He just whiffed. That turn was insane. If there was some way just to play that first one, then that was the second acrobatics card, which would have then popped off, drawn 2 more cards. The second one would have been free. Maybe you get a philosophy at that point. He was really close. But the alignment...
Brutes are free now.
But the Brutes are still going to come down 1 turn later. Philosophy is the draw he will want. Has a couple of chances to hit it. Does not. Brute glide. Yep.
Okay.
And Anaconda, Auctioneer, Nourish. I've played this game before.
One thing about Glide, though, is that when you shuffle them back in, it actually resets the mana cost of the cards.
That's right.
So...
Whoa!
What?
I was pretty close, TJ. I was pretty close.
What?
And yeah, as you say, HKroms could be drawing full cost cards here. As you see with the Cane, that is the downside of doing that. I still respect the Glide because you have to think when your opponent plays Celestial on curve like that in a matchup where you know Celestial is a bad thing to do, they have a plan after the Celestial, right? So trying to ruin that plan with the Glide does make a lot of sense, but this can happen. You can just glide your opponent back into the absolute nuts, and that is 100% what is going down here.
Yeah. Keep in mind that the glides that were the cards that were shuffled back in from the Glide the first time around are also full cost from Norwis's perspective.
That Lightning Bloom costs 0, though. It's not straight up downside in that, well, the Lightning Bloom goes back down to original cost at 0, so that is just a straight up improvement for Norwis this turn. That's unfortunate, however, now hitting the 2-mana solar. Heart Eye? Really, you're lunaring that? Okay. He has no way of knowing it, but Solar Best in Shell is kind of the nuts here because Cane actually was one of the full cost cards that came back out of the deck.
Yeah. I mean, this is also just a lot of taunt, yeah.
HKroms is not going to have the damage on board left remaining to go off with here once his Cane is playable next turn, so he's not going to be pushing lethal on the following turn. I think Norwis has just stolen this one.
He played the Lightning Bloom last turn, so he's still like limited on mana to work with. But the biggest thing is just the amount of power on board. He can clean everything up, and because Kurtrus still hasn't been able to come down, there's a lot of, there's still a couple full cost cards that are left, though they were originally cheap anyway. And there's no Furies in the deck, so like Cane Fury or something along those lines.
I got super freaked out there. You see him try and cue all those attacks at face and then mouse over the Cane? I was trying to search my brain for some magical interaction that allowed him to play the Cane that turn, but he was just manifesting. He was just living his best life. He'll turn around and say to his partner or his friends or whoever he lives with, yeah, I won that game. See these animations going off? See all those attacks going face and that Cane coming down? Boom, game over.
Yeah. That's a win. I just turned off my deck tracker before the game resolved, so I'll go and enter that one in manually to the spreadsheet later on. That's a dub. That is a dub, but not here. That's a dub for Norwis. Moves up to 5-0 in the standings. Pretty interesting lineup when you look at it. Aggro list plus the Miracles.